Right. Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about objections and problem cases to deontology. Right. So we last lecture we looked at Kant, and we looked at deontology as kind of a rule-based ethics in which many things are sort of categorically prohibited. Right. And so we're going to see some objections to this moral theory. We're going to cover four of them. Three of them were not covered in the reading, and then we're going to look at the objection from Steinhoff. Okay, so let's suppose that you have a friend that's staying at your house. Let's just call her Kathy. And she's staying for the weekend. And during the day, she goes upstairs for a nap. And while she's asleep, you hear a knock, knock, knock on the door, right? Knock, 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 and you answer it, and a person, is at the door, and they say they pull out a big knife and they say, "Is Kathy here? If she is here, I am going to murder her." Right? Okay, so what do? Right? Do you tell the truth, or do you lie to the murderer? And let's suppose that those are your only two options. You can either lie or you can tell the truth, right? So according to deontology and according to Kant, lying is always wrong because it always treats someone else as a mere means, right? And it also fails the formula of universal law. So there is a categorical, meaning all the time, there's an all the time prohibition on lying. So deontology tells us to tell the truth, tell the murderer that your friend is upstairs, and then she's going to be murdered, right? So that seems like a problem. And so this case is pulling out the intuition that it seems like it's sometimes okay to lie. And the problem here is that deontology gives us the wrong answer. Okay. This one is a little bit more complex. So let's suppose that you're a British spy during World War II, and after months of work, you have finally infiltrated the community of Nazi officers. You attend a dinner with many high-ranking Nazi officials. At the dinner, the officers start rattling off their favorite anti-Semitic jokes. They then ask you, who is posing as a Nazi, what your favorite Jewish joke is. You notice that most of the wait staff there are Jewish and clearly within earshot of your voice. You also know that if you refrain from answering, you run the risk of blowing your cover. So Kant says that we must treat everyone with respect and never merely as a means, right? And so when you say the joke, the anti-Semitic joke, and Jewish people are around you, you're treating them as a mere means. You're not showing them the utmost and due respect that they're owed according to deontology. But at the same time, if you refrain from saying the joke, well, then you run the risk of a really bad outcome, which is you'll probably, you may blow your cover, in which case you'll be killed. And the mission that you're supposed to do, infiltrating this group of Nazi officers is going to fail, right? So there's high stakes if you don't say the joke. So it seems like, so what should we do? Do we tell the joke even if it fails to respect humanity? And even if it treats them as a mere means, right? So it seems like the thing to do in this situation is to tell the joke, even though it uses other people as a means. And if that's right, then deontology gives us the wrong verdict in this case, right? Deontology says, no, refrain from the joke, and then run the risk of blowing your cover. That seems like a problem for the theory. Okay, this is another very sort of wacky case, but this one has to do in particular with the formula of universal law, right? So recall the formula of universal law involves taking your maxim and universalizing it imagining a scenario where everybody follows your rule, right? Your maxim, and then like, what would that world look like? Okay, so suppose that you're an avid toy train collector, and every weekend you go to toy train conventions to buy new trains, and you adopt the maxim, I will buy all the toy trains that I can and sell none. Should you adopt this maxim? So one thing to note is that this maxim fails the formula of universal law. This is because if everybody bought into this maxim, right? If everybody was going to buy all of the toy trains that they could and sell none, well, then we would run out of toy trains very quickly, right? Nobody could buy or sell toy trains because everybody would be hoarding them. And so there's a kind of contradiction there, right? And so given the finitude, right? Given that there's only so many trains to go around, if everyone tried to collect all of the toy trains and sold none, there would be no more toy trains left. So, like I said previously, there's a contradiction in the maxim. And so given that there's a contradiction in the maxim, when we universalize it, it seems like the ruling that the formula of universal law gives us is that it's morally wrong to buy all the toy trains and sell none. But that seems really, really weird, because like buying all the toy trains that you can, it seems to be pretty like morally neutral, right? And so this seems like the formula of universal law gives us the wrong verdict in for this maxim in particular, right? So we have to ask ourselves, is deontology, is the formula of universal law, are they giving us our correct moral assessments that sort of match our intuitions? Okay. And then finally, we have Steinhoff's objection, and it's kind of like the murderer at the door. Basically, deontologists are calling, or have been calling for a categorical prohibition on torture, right? And so torture seems to be something that is morally very egregious, right? But Steinhoff is pointing out that, look, there seem to be times where torturing somebody, even for just a little while, seems to be morally justified, especially in cases where, say, like the entire world is going to blow up unless we torture one person for 5 minutes, right? So given that torture probably doesn't pass the formula of universal law because you're using somebody as a mere means, given that that's the case, it seems like, once again, deontology gives us the wrong verdict, right? Because when the stakes are high enough, right, and the outcomes are better when we torture someone, right? When the outcomes are really good, if we torture someone versus if we don't, it seems like it may be morally permissible to torture someone, right? So, so the idea here is that, look, a categorical prohibition against torture seems to be too strong, right? It seems to miss out on cases where it's clearly justifiable to torture someone, right? And the other thing is, it's the authors that he's engaging with say that it's sometimes okay to kill someone, but it's never okay to torture someone. But he says, just think about it. Somebody would prefer to be tortured for 5 minutes versus being killed, right? So anyway, but the objection against deontology here is the categorical, or the all times, at all times in all places, it's wrong to torture someone. Steinhoff is just saying that that's not quite right. Anyway, so during this lecture, we've covered 4 objections, or 4 kind of problem cases for deontology. And these problem cases amount to what might be a problem for the moral theory. Thank you all.